Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech, and today we're going to be talking about Budget Mono Blue Terror. I'm very excited to share this list with you. As always, at the end of the video, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about the list? Is there a card that I forgot to include that I definitely should have? Or do you have suggestions for upcoming videos? Just let me know in the comment section. So, okay, real quick before we hop into it here. So, for those who are unfamiliar, so obviously we have Tolarian Terror. Feature, spoiler alert, it's one of the better cards that's in the entire deck. And Dimir Terror is actually a very good deck in Pauper. Plays a lot of counterspells in removal, and then uses Tolarian Terror as a finisher. So we're playing a mono blue version of that today in Pioneer, and the cards are a lot different. Like, the core is much different, we're not playing like Snuff Out and Brainstorm and such like that, but we're still playing a lot of really strong cards. But what's really cool is Bloomborough gave us another pseudo version of Tolarian Terror, which we'll go ahead and take a look at it now. So, okay, obviously we're playing the 4 Cryptic Serpent and the 4 Tolarian Terror. We understand that that's like the staple of the entire deck. We're also playing 4 Eddie Merc Crab, brand new card from Bloomborough, 5/5 for 5 and then blue with flash, but it costs 1 less for each instant and sorcery in our graveyard, so most of the time it's going to be like 2 or 3 mana. It enters tapped if it's not your turn, but when it enters, tap up to 2 target creatures, which is just sweet. We get essentially 12 copies of a very similar card there, which is really, really cool. And I just wanted to mention too, even though this card enters tapped if it's not your turn, you're going to want to be casting it on the opponent's turn. You're going to want to tap 2 target creatures like before they move to combat or something like that. I just wanted to go ahead and include that. But anyways, we have 12 copies of essentially the same card, which is really, really cool. So when I saw this card in Bloomborough spoilers, I knew I had to build a mono blue terror deck for this. So all right, let's go and take a look at the rest of the cards that we're playing in this. The name of the game is putting instants and sorceries in our graveyard, but also keeping up tempo. So we're playing 4 Opt and 4 Consider. Again, it's really, really cheap. Surveil is nice in this deck too, because we could potentially, if we have an extra counterspell that we really don't need, we could just go ahead and put it in the graveyard and draw a new card, which helps cast our Cryptic Serpents and such a little bit cheaper. We're also playing 4 copies of Censor, which I like it in this deck for multiple reasons. One, being able to force spike our opponent is pretty good, but also being able to cycle it away when we don't need it later on in the game is also really cool. And spoiler alert, if you don't like counterspells, then don't look at this next page here, because we're also playing 4 copies of Syncopate and 3 Steps Ahead, and 2 copies of Stubborn Denial. So I really like Stubborn Denial in this deck, mostly because whenever we have the Tolarian Terror, the Cryptic Serpent, or the Eddie Merc Lurker, I'm already forgetting its name, but if we have one of those in play, Stubborn Denial is just a 1 mana negate, which is really sweet. And then Syncopate and 3 Steps Ahead are pretty good. Syncopate it kind of scales as the game goes along. We hit our land drops, and then for the most part it's just a hard counter. I really like 3 Steps Ahead in this deck though. It is 5 US a piece though, but it's because it's so good in this deck. Being able to potentially make a token that's a copy of target creature we control is really, really sweet. But having the option as like an instant speed divination or countering a spell is really, really sweet. So definitely a huge fan of 3 Steps Ahead here. And then on our last slide here, we're also playing 2 copies of Fading Hope and 4 Into the Floodmaw. I really like Into the Floodmaw. It was featured in my top Bloomborough Pioneer cards, because I think this card's really good. 1 blue to be able to unsummon an opponent's creature, but then if we give them a tapped 1/1, we can return any non-land permanent. I think the card is fantastic, and then Fading Hope is kind of the original version of that, but it's still really good. One thing to keep in mind with Fading Hope, though, it is return target creature to its owner's hand. So in a weird way, like if our opponent goes to board wipe, we can bounce our own Tolarian Terror or such like that if we really, really need to, which is pretty cool. So do keep that in mind with Fading Hope. But those are all the non-land cards we're playing in the deck. Let's go ahead and check out the lands that we're playing, which it's going to be a pretty simple mana base. So we're playing 4 copies of Castle Vantress and 2 copies of Hall of the Storm Giants as our main, utility lands. Castle Vantress is just good. Late game, if we have a bunch of open mana, we're not doing anything with it, we can just go ahead and scry 2, which is pretty sweet. Kind of similar with Hall of Storm Giants. If we really just want to start getting in there with a 7/7 with Ward 3, we can just activate the Hall. So definitely a huge fan of Hall of the Storm Giants. And then rounding out our lands, we're playing 4 copies of Field of Ruin and 10 islands. Field of Ruin's just pretty good because we're a monocolor deck. We have a little bit of leeway in terms of our mana base overall, and we are a budget build, so that's why we're playing the Field of Ruins, good at taking care of, pesky manlands, Cavern of Souls, Nykthos, really whatever pesky land is on the opponent's board, we can take care of it. So, and then as our spicy basic land of the day, I wanted to feature the Dominaria Island. I don't know what it was, maybe just because Tolarian Terror is from Dominaria United, I don't know, but I just was like, build this deck, and I'm like, I know the exact island I want to put in this deck. And I really, really do like the Dominaria United Island. So, all right, let's go and hop into the sideboard here. So sideboard is going to be really, really simple. We're going to want some extra counter spells that are more, good after post-boarding. So, like, for instance, putting in some negates is what I would do, or mystical disputes for playing against, like, Is It Phoenix, for instance. We're going to want a little bit of graveyard hate. Obviously, keep in mind that our opponents are probably going to be bringing in their graveyard hate against us, but either way, I would say probably just Tormod Script is the best option, especially when we're playing at a budget. You could also play Soul Guide Lantern if you want a little bit of extra card draw. Vampire Hate. Vampires everywhere right now in the metagame. I would say Pithing Needle is your best shot in terms of, keeping Vein Rippers off the battlefield. But although with this deck, Vein Ripper, like, if they immediately put it in play, we do have options. We can bounce it to their hand, and take out the Sorin. Our creatures do trade with it, which is pretty sweet as well with vampires. But, and then try to counter the Sorin as it comes down with, like, Stubborn Denial or Censor. But do not let that Vein Ripper stay in play too long, because otherwise, we're definitely going to be dead. And then Dampening Sphere is just a really good sideboard card. It's really, really cheap. It's good against, like, the Nykthos decks. It's good against Lotus Field combo. It's good against a number of different decks. So definitely pack a few Dampening Spheres in your sideboard. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the upgrade options, which honestly, there's a lot for this deck because it is a budget list. You could also, at least for the land base, put in an Otawara. Otawara is really, really good. There's a reason why the card is like $20 US a piece. So yeah, just go ahead and throw an Otawara in there if you have one. The last thing I want to mention, there's really not any other upgrade options for mono blue. And I put Dimir Terror on there as in, upgrading, getting the Dimir dual lands, putting in some fatal pushes and some other, good Dimir spells. But quite honestly, you could really splash whatever color you want with this deck and it would be pretty good. Like, you could do red if you want to do like a cool counter burn version. You could do like, I guess you could do Simic, there's some pretty good Simic utility spells, but I would say like Dimir or Is It with both would both be really good, honestly. The last thing I want to mention here is the current list is only $60 US for a budget deck, which is incredibly cheap. Most of it's just really good commons and uncommons with a couple of good rares, like obviously 3 steps ahead. And then the upgraded list, as I was able to build it, is 90. That's including the Otawara and a couple other good random mono blue spells, but that's because the deck is really, really cheap. Monocolor decks are typically pretty cheap in Pioneer, and this deck is no exception. So let me know in the comment section below if you have a deck similar to this, or if you do end up building this list, and let me know how it goes. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. The deck lists are in the description below if you'd like to check them out for yourself. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, and Sarwanoki. If you are interested in being a channel member, it's only $1 US a month. You get access to the exclusive Discord as well as other features here on the channel. So I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one.